There is a man sitting in a leased car worth $90,000, wearing a watch he financed over 24 months, scrolling through his phone because his bank account has less than $300 in it. And he is not the exception. He is the pattern. Because the truth is this: broke people don't buy expensive things because they are foolish. They buy expensive things because pain told them to. And once you understand why, you will never look at money the same way again. But here's what most people never realize. This isn't really a story about money at all. It's a story about identity. About the desperate, invisible war happening inside a person's mind every single time they swipe a card. And the real reason behind it is far more surprising than anyone wants to admit. Before we go further, if you're serious about understanding how your own mind works with money, take a second to like this video and subscribe, because what you're about to hear could completely change the way you see every purchase you make for the rest of your life. Let's talk about a man named Marcus. Marcus grew up in a small apartment where his mother counted coins on the kitchen table every Sunday night. He remembers the silence in that room. Not sadness exactly, something heavier: shame. By the time Marcus was 25, he had a decent job, decent income, nothing spectacular. But he also had something else: a memory, a wound that never healed. So the first real paycheck he earned, he didn't save it. He didn't invest it. He bought a designer jacket he couldn't really afford. And for one night, walking into a room wearing that jacket, Marcus felt something he had never felt as a child. Respect. That's the mistake. Not the jacket, the belief underneath it. Marcus believed, without even realizing it, that the jacket would fix the wound, that it would answer the question his whole childhood had been asking: am I enough? Here's where things get interesting. Psychologists have a name for this. It's called compensatory consumption. It means people buy status symbols not to enjoy them, but to cover a wound they don't want to look at directly. The wound says, "I am not enough." The purchase whispers back, for a moment, "Yes, you are." But that whisper doesn't last. It never does. And that's the trap almost nobody talks about. Think about it like this. Confidence built from the inside is like a house built on concrete. Confidence borrowed from a purchase is like a house built on ice. It looks the same from the outside, but the moment the temperature changes, it collapses. And the temperature always changes. This is where average thinkers and strategic thinkers separate completely. The average thinker feels a void and reaches for something outside himself to fill it. The strategic thinker feels the exact same void, but instead of reaching for a product, he asks a much harder question. Why does this void exist in the first place? That single question is the beginning of every real transformation you will ever witness in a human being. But that's not the most important part, because here's something almost nobody notices. Wealthy people, real wealthy people, the ones who quietly build fortunes instead of performing them, they rarely chase status symbols. Not because they can't afford them, because they already answered the question that broke people are still trying to answer with a shopping bag. They already know they are enough. So the object loses its power over them completely. Let's go back to Marcus for a second, because his story isn't finished. 3 years after that jacket, Marcus is now $30,000 in debt. Every purchase gave him a spike of relief, followed by a crash of anxiety. Spike, crash. Spike, crash. His bank account became a roller coaster, controlled entirely by his emotions instead of his goals. And one night, sitting alone, staring at a credit card statement he was terrified to open, Marcus had a realization that would change everything. He realized the jacket never made him respected. It made him feel respected for exactly as long as the dopamine lasted. And then it left him emptier than before, because now the wound was still there, and the debt was new. He had been trying to purchase self-worth on a payment plan, and self-worth was never for sale. If you're watching this and something in your chest just tightened a little, drop a comment below and just say the word "seen," because I promise you, you are not the only one who has felt that exact moment of recognition. Now here's the psychology behind why this trap is so powerful, and I want you to really absorb this part, because it explains almost every impulsive purchase you have ever regretted. Our brains did not evolve for modern society. They evolved for survival in small tribes thousands of years ago. Back then, status wasn't vanity, status was survival. Higher status meant more protection, more resources, more mating opportunities, more safety for your children. So your brain still, to this day, treats status like a matter of life and death, even though you are just standing in a shopping mall holding a credit card. That's why the fear of looking poor feels, biologically, almost identical to the fear of being in danger. Your nervous system cannot always tell the difference between social rejection and physical threat. So when someone feels broke, unseen, or invisible, their brain doesn't just feel sad, it feels unsafe. And the fastest, most primitive way to signal safety to your tribe is to signal resources. Even if those resources are fake, even if they're financed, even if they're destroying you quietly in the background. This is the real reason broke people love expensive things. It was never about materialism. It was about survival wearing a disguise. Here's where the story shifts, because I want to tell you about someone else. Her name was Elena. Elena grew up almost identically to Marcus. Same kind of financial stress, same kind of quiet shame at home. But Elena's turning point came earlier. At 22, she bought an expensive handbag she absolutely could not afford, and for about a week, she felt unstoppable. Then the credit card bill arrived, and something inside her cracked open instead of shutting down. Instead of hiding from the discomfort, she sat with it. She asked herself one brutal question. Am I trying to buy respect because I don't believe I already deserve it? That question destroyed her old identity and built a new one in its place. Elena didn't stop caring about how she presented herself to the world, but she flipped the order of operations completely. Instead of buying confidence and hoping it would eventually become real, she built confidence first, through discipline, through small, consistent wins, through saving, through skill, through becoming someone she actually respected when she looked in the mirror. And only after that foundation was solid did nice things enter her life again. Except now they weren't a mask. They were a reflection. This is the identity shift that changes everything. Average people try to buy their way into feeling like somebody. Strategic people become somebody, and then simply enjoy the natural results of that becoming. One is a shortcut that leads nowhere. The other is a slower road that leads to everything. Let's bring in one more piece of contrast, because this is where the lesson really lands. Reacting versus thinking. When Marcus felt small, he reacted instantly. Jacket in hand within the hour. When Elena felt small, eventually she paused and she thought. That pause is worth more than any bank account, because that pause is where all self-control lives. Motion without direction feels productive, but leads nowhere. Just like spending feels like progress, but is often just motion. Real progress is quiet. It doesn't need an audience, it doesn't need a receipt. Consumers chase objects to feel like something. Builders create value and let the objects follow naturally, if they even want them at all. Followers imitate whatever signals status around them. Leaders decide independently what actually matters to them and refuse to let a marketing department define their self-worth. You are not broken if you have ever bought something you couldn't afford to feel something you were missing. Almost every single person watching this has done exactly that at least once. The question is not whether you have felt that pull. The question is whether you keep obeying it or whether, starting today, you finally understand it. Because now you do understand it. You know the wound isn't fixed by the purchase. You know your brain is running ancient survival software in a modern world. You know that real, unshakable confidence has to be built from the inside, brick by brick, decision by decision, and cannot be financed over 24 months. If this video shifted something in the way you think, share it with one person who needs to hear it today. Because someone in your life is probably sitting exactly where Marcus once sat, and your one share could be the moment that changes their direction. Here is the core truth to carry with you. Expensive things are not evil. And wanting nice things does not make you shallow. But when you buy from a wound, the object owns you. When you buy from wholeness, you own the object. The goal was never to stop wanting more. The goal is to become the kind of person who wants more from a place of strength instead of a place of fear. You are no longer someone who reaches for objects to silence a wound. You are someone who faces the wound directly, builds real strength underneath it, and lets everything else follow as a byproduct of who you've become, not a replacement for who you were afraid you weren't. That is the difference between spending your whole life trying to look wealthy and quietly, patiently becoming free.